Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report, coming to you live from Washington, D.C. How is everybody today? I am good. Still adjusting my light. Let me see. Is that, maybe? I can't decide. Oh, that's too much. It's very difficult to adjust the light because if I go like, wah, it's too much. All right, someday we'll have the lighting down. It's confusing. Anyway, welcome all. How are you all? Waiting for it to come up, but I know you're live. Yes, you're live. You're live. Anyway, hello everybody. I'm going to get TikTok rolling in a second here. Chat is unavailable. Don't give me that. Don't give me that. Hold on. It's claiming the chat's unavailable, but I need to make sure at least it exists. Chat. Well, it's claiming the chat's unavailable for YouTube. That's obnoxious. Well, one of you mods want to like send me a message or something? Actually, Ash, I don't know if you're there, but I want to make sure you guys are actually there. I guess I can go look at YouTube and just, maybe I can pull YouTube up separately. I can probably do that. Hang on. I don't know why it's not showing me the chat. Don't be evil. One more time. Chat. Yeah. Nope. Live chat is unavailable. Well, that's lovely of you. All right. Let me pull this up on, I'm going to pull it up on YouTube and look on my phone to make sure we're live. But it's kind of annoying if I can't see your guys' comments. Actually, no, I'll do it on my computer. Hold on. I'll do this on my computer because maybe I can just do it that way and have you sort of open on the side. That should work. Might be a little confusing, but I'll survive. Hang on, I've got my glasses on. We can make this work. Technical glitches are always fun. All right, OBS. Hang on here. View your channel. So make sure I am live. I am live. It claims I'm live. Oh, showing me an ad. Sorry, we have ads. It's TikTok. Okay, there's the chat. Okay, so I am live. Yeah, guys? Okay, you're here and you can, good. Okay, good. Good. All right, I can see the, yep, I can see the chat box at least here, which this works. Okay, that's good enough. Yeah. I'm seeing Danielle, CK Ariat. You're incognito today. Carlos, Danny, Carlos. Okay, good. All right. I see you guys. Excellent. All right. I just need to like ignore the camera because the camera's delayed like 8 seconds, so it's confusing me. But you guys can see me. I mean, you can hear me for sure, right? Okay, good. Yeah, I can see the chat, so we're fine. I'm just having to watch it through YouTube, and like I said, as long as I ignore, here I'm going to pull this over. As long as I ignore the actual camera on YouTube because it's kind of slow, we should be fine. All right, excellent. All right, guys, let me get TikTok rolling then. Feeling better now. This is much better. All right. Woo! Got that out of the way. No, technical glitches are always kind of fun. Hello, TikTok. Because you kind of have to sit here and be like, you know, panic. All right, TikTok, mirror video, boom. All right. Hey, Ryan. Yep, we'll wait a minute for the TikTokers to join us too, and then we will get rolling. All right. This is good. Good enough. It's working at least. This is good. YouTube live control panel. Oh, there we go. Okay. Well, that's good. I still can't see the comments, but at least I can see that you're there. No, I can see the comments. I'm sorry. Oh, it's Edsel. Edsel! Hey, you live. Good to see you. I saw Carlos mention you, and I went, Edsel's here. How exciting. Hey, Jay. Thank you for renewing your subscription. And Annie for the gift on YouTube. Thanks, guys. Oh, Chazak for the rose. Oops, just making sure I didn't miss anything else. John with the heart. All right, guys, we can get rolling here. So today, I'm doing things a little different, not different, but a little different. I want to have a long talk about Trump's comments this weekend about NATO because they're a big deal. Thanks, Arifa. And, you know, they affect Ukraine. They affect everything. Thank you, Shelly, and Arifa for the glasses, Shelly for the rose. So we're going to have a long talk about the Trump stuff. There's not a ton of Ukraine news today, actually, anyway. But I think the Trump stuff is really important. And what he said, as Piper says, can't believe what he said. You know, and I want to get into the details of it. Because, first of all, Trump got very confused, as always. He doesn't really understand how NATO works, which is really bad after 4 years of president. But nonetheless. But he had some valid points, except that he basically put us one step closer to World War III, which probably not very acceptable. But in any case, so let me get rolling, guys. I am John Aravosis. Welcome all. This is my show. I'm trying to get my, all right, my, thanks, Mustard. Just trying to get, all right, my computer is, okay, I'm going to stop futzing around. So welcome, guys. Thank you, Dawn. This is my show I do every Monday to Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern Time, U.S., where we talk about the latest news from Ukraine. Today, we're going to have a long talk about Donald Trump's weird comments this weekend, which was not good. Hey, Mustard, thank you for that. And the way the show works is I will go through sort of the news, whatever. Although I'll try to keep an eye on the comments. Usually we do the second half of the show where I take your guys' comments and go that way. But thank you, Brian. Thank you, Martin. But I'll try to, maybe we can have a discussion as we go on. I'll try. It's not always easy to sort of read my notes and read the comments, but I'll try. And finally, please keep the gifts coming. The reason, thank you, Succeed, and Doggy Dave. The reason you see me, and Brian and Martin, you see me thanking people for the gifts is because I do this full time. This is my job. And the way I am paid is literally your guys' gifts, among other things. Thank you, Kemi. So it helps a lot because it helps me pay the bill. So please do keep the gifts coming. Okay, let's get into this. So today is day 718. Thank you, Allie, of Vladimir Putin's special 3-day military operation in Ukraine. Thank you, Louis. This weekend, Trump made, thanks, Wayne, some really dangerous and ignorant comments. Very dangerous, actually. And I think he took us one step closer to war with Russia as a result. Trump being Trump, there is, thank you, Maddie, he raised a legitimate concern, thank you, Critter, which is how much European countries, and Canada, by the way, as well, because Canada's falling short, are spending on defense, and then turned it into an invitation for Russia to attack Europe, which Trump literally did. Let me read you this. So Trump says during his campaign event this weekend, thank you, William, and Pin Swarm as well, and David, thank you, guys. Trump says this weekend during a campaign event. I'm going to tell you what he said, and then I'm going to explain because Trump got it wrong, because Trump literally still doesn't understand NATO after 7 years. He was president for 4 years. It's been 3 years since he was president, and he still doesn't understand NATO, meaning he doesn't understand how it operates, which is very bad, and how the funding works and everything else. So Trump says, NATO was busted until I came along. No, it wasn't. Trump said at a rally in Conway, South Carolina this weekend, I said, everybody's going to pay. They said, well, if we don't pay, are you still going to protect us? Thank you, Christine and Jen. And oh my God. Are you still going to protect us? And I said, absolutely not. They couldn't believe the answer. He goes, one of the presidents of a big country in Europe asked me at one point whether the U.S. would still defend that country if they were invaded by Russia, even if they, quote, don't pay. And I said, no, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them, Russia, to do whatever the hell they want. You gotta pay your bills. Well, okay, number of things here. First of all, this is ironic from Trump because Trump is notorious for not paying his bills. I mean that quite seriously. You can Google the issue. Thank you, Vicky. Notorious. Trump is one of these, I was going to say one of these rich people, but it's not just rich people. Scammers do this, where they have such large bills for things because he's a big spender. Look at his court cases. He's had 91 indictments. His lawyers, Giuliani, he owes millions to. You end up spending a lot of money. Well, Trump is notorious for just not paying. Thank you, Fred. And he knows that basically, and this is something that actually was thank you, Marie, was an observation. When I went to graduate school in the 1980s, one of the big issues then was Latin American debt and how Latin America, I mean, we're talking, I think, Argentina might have had 60 billion in debt, I think. I mean, it was huge amounts of debt these countries had, development aid that, the World Bank kind of played fast and loose with the money, but also the Argentine government and others played fast and loose with the money. It was just, the dictatorships had gotten the money. It was a mess across the board, right? And one of the sort of jokes, but it was real during the 1980s, was a quote that said something like, if I owe you $1 million, I have a problem. If I owe you $1 billion, you've got a problem. And the idea was the more money I owe you, the more I kind of have you by the neck. Because if I don't pay you back, you're kind of screwed, right? If I don't pay you $1 million, you'll survive and you'll sue me and blah, blah, blah. If I owe you $1 billion, now you're kind of in trouble if I don't pay you back, right? And Trump has taken advantage of this through the years where he just won't pay. And he'll actually try to renegotiate his bills. And he'll just say, I'm not paying you. I'll pay you 20% or whatever, And he does this all the time with vendors. He's not paying Giuliani now. Giuliani's complaining because Giuliani has millions of dollars in bills now and Trump won't pay. Any case, so Trump, put that aside with Trump saying, you gotta pay your bills. Trump never pays his bills. Putting that aside, what Trump is talking about, and he got it totally wrong because he always gets it wrong, there isn't a NATO bill to be paid. That's not the way it works. NATO had reached an agreement in 2006. Now, NATO's been around for, 70 years? I'm trying to remember what year NATO started. 75 years? Was NATO 1949? When, Alexa, what year was NATO created? Let's see. I hate when she doesn't hear me. I think it's 49. Alexa, what year was NATO created? Alexa, raise your... Oh, sorry, Alexa, go ahead. Oh, good. She's such a freaking moron. Alexa, raise your volume and tell me what year NATO was created.
No worries.
Okay, you're an idiot. Sorry. No worries, she keeps saying. Fine. It was the late 1940s, exactly. 47, 49. So we're talking 75 years, something like that. I know Alexa's the boss. I just kind of, yeah, Alexa's working for Putin, exactly. Thank you, Nicholas. NATO, as of 2006, the NATO defense ministers got together and they agreed that there would be a target of each NATO country spending at least 2% on defense. So 2% of their size of their economy, their gross, the GDP. Thank you, Christine. So meaning if your economy's, $25 billion, then 2% of $25 billion is what you should be spending on defense, right? And they all promised. Well, most of them did not. Thank you, Jeremy. It was very bad, actually. I've got the numbers here. Listen to this. This was, I think, from The Guardian. Let me see. Let me pull the numbers here. Last year, this is from the Wall Street Journal, actually. 9 of NATO's 29 European members met the alliance's target of spending 2% of gross domestic product on defense by 2024. 9 of the 29 in Europe. By the way, Canada, I don't know why it left out Canada. Canada hasn't done it either. So it's 30. 30 of NATO's, actually, aren't we up to 32 now? I'm already forgetting with Finland. 31 or 32? Help me out. Any case, we're talking 30 of the, 9, losing my mind, 32. Thank you, Callum. So 9 as of last year met the target of 32. Half were expected to hit the target this year. So by this year, it's expected to get up to half. So that would be 16 or so. Okay. That's only half of NATO that is meeting its commitment. That's bad. Now, this is not money they pay. Trump still thinks that this is money they pay NATO. They don't pay NATO money. It's money they're spending on their own defense. It is literally their own defense budget in each country. Each budget is supposed to be at least 2% of their economy should be spent on defense. That's the way it's set up. On half the NATO countries, more than half are recalcitrant. It'll be half this year. Now, I want to read you sort of which countries, because I got the list. It wasn't easy to find, actually, the breakdown of who's sort of breaking the rules. Let me read you this. So the good NATO countries, the ones that are spending 2% or more, are Poland, the US, Greece. I thought these were kind of an interesting list. Estonia, Lithuania, Finland, Romania, Hungary, Latvia, the UK, and Sweden. Now, Sweden is not a NATO member yet, but obviously we're trying. Sweden as well. All the other ones, bad. Slovakia, France, Montenegro, Northern Macedonia, Bulgaria, Croatia, Albania, Netherlands, Norway, Denmark, Germany, Czechia, Portugal, Italy, Canada, Slovenia, Turkey, Spain, Belgium, Luxembourg. None of them made the commitment yet or reached the promise. That is very bad. Okay, that is very bad. Now, Trump is not wrong about that. Trump, to his credit, raised this issue a lot during his presidency to try to push NATO to up its commitment. And he's right about that. I mean, by the way, he was very right about that. And he did get some of them to come along. The problem is saying something incredibly stupid, like, we're not going to protect you. And he went one step further this weekend. He literally encouraged Putin to invade Europe this weekend. It's not just stupid, it's incredibly dangerous. And I sort of wrote down I'm going to go through this sort of various points of the impact here of just how dangerous it is what Trump did. For Putin, from Putin's perspective, Putin now has to wonder if the U.S. will come defend Europe if he invades. The concern all along with the Soviet Union, and then we had a little bit of a break for 10 years, and then it started getting, then it got iffy again with Putin. The concern all along was that the Soviets would invade Europe, that there would be a land war in Europe, and they would come across the Baltics, the Eastern European countries that Russia was holding hostage. They would come across there. They would come into, I'm trying to remember. Oh, actually, Ava's map does have it. Ava, you're good. All right, I'll show you on Ava's map. So the idea was back then, and we're starting to worry again now, what the Russians did was, World War II, the Russians were Hitler's ally. The Russians actually helped start World War II. They reached a pact with the Nazis at the beginning of the war, the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, I can never pronounce it correctly, where they basically told the Nazis, go ahead, go take Poland, go take everybody else, and we're not going to, basically, just go after everybody. We're not going to get involved. We're not going to go after you. So don't worry about going to war with the Soviet Union. At the same time, you're going to war with all of Europe. We're allies now. We're going to have some fun in Europe and take some land too. We're going to kill a bunch of Poles. Just don't worry about it. Well, it gave the Nazis the go-ahead to start World War II. So the Nazis did. 2 years in, the Nazis being Nazis, turned around and stabbed the Russians in the back and declared war on Russia. And it was like, oops. So suddenly Russia was at war with the Nazis, and we had a common foe, and we being the good guys, of course, Europe and America, decided to work with the Russians as our allies. Bash, this is going to take a minute. Try to remind me of that. Don't let me forget your question, but I don't want to stop right now since I'm like in the middle of explaining this, okay? But remind me of it because that's a good question. So what happens? World War II ends, 1945, and Russia decides they're going to take over half of Europe. The same thing the Nazis were trying to do, Russia ends up doing. So the Soviet Union literally, earlier they had already taken over the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Ukraine, obviously, earlier. They ended up taking all of this to Germany, Czech Republic, or Czechoslovakia at the time, Hungary, Romania. You get into some interesting issues with the Balkans, a little more complicated. Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, up here. And Ukraine's part of Russia at this point, the Soviet Union, as is Belarus. So you basically got this block like this, hopefully I'm not getting it totally off, of countries that Russia sets up Stalinist dictatorships in. And I mean the most brutal dictatorships in the world outside of North Korea. Horrific police states in these countries. Horrific. East Germany, they cut Germany in half, declared an independent country in the East, East Germany, which is now attached back to Germany again. Thank you, adventurers. East Germany, 1/3 of the this statistic always drove me crazy. 1/3 of the German population, the police state had files on 1/3 of the German population. Thank you, adventurers. Thank you, Super Hornet. Imagine that. 1/3 of the entire population, they had secret files on, spying on them. I mean, horrific. The Europeans here can tell you, especially the Eastern Europeans, just how bad these governments were. They were particularly bad in Romania, East Germany, horrific. I mean, a number of them were bad, but those were some of the worst. So, the Russians. So we create NATO to basically protect the West, protect the rest of Europe, right? So you've got the rest of Europe over here, Greece down here, Turkey as well. So you've got like swath like this, half of Germany, the UK, right, Norway, and we create NATO to basically ensure that the Russians, the Soviets, don't go and invade everybody else, right? Don't go and invade the rest of us. And it worked for 75 years. NATO's underlying premise is, the Three Musketeers, one for all, right? That if anybody invades a NATO country or attacks a NATO country, it will be considered an attack on all NATO countries and we will come to their defense. And Russia, especially, Russia was obviously the one we were really worried about. Russia might have been interested in going after Poland, going after the Baltic states now by the way that they're free, but Russia's much less likely to do it because they don't want to go to war with America. They don't want to go to war with the UK. A number of other countries too. They don't want to go to war with Norway, but there's a lot of places they don't want to go to war with. Much less chance of them attacking Poland, attacking the Baltic states, which they're interested in. They are interested in those countries. Well, if Putin is ever considering causing trouble in the area, if he's ever considering trying to destabilize the Baltic states, which is these guys, right? Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, destabilizing Poland, even going after, I mean, once he gets Moldova, even going after Hungary, Slovakia, Romania, right? He's got to do a calculus in his head of, is it worth it? A, can I win? And the calculus is NATO, right? Is, can I beat NATO in a war? Because this will mean war. A, can I win? And B, even if I can win, is it worth it? And I told you guys this I love sort of the phrase Pyrrhic victory. A Pyrrhic victory is a victory that costs you so much that it wasn't worth it. So like you win a battle, or it could even be a personal battle, right? You win, it could be a divorce. You could win the divorce, like you're having a horrible acrimonious divorce, and you could like win, but you've lost so much in doing it. Your children have turned on you, and your children no longer want to have any relationship. Like you could just lose so much. Your health could go down. That it's a Pyrrhic victory. It's called. Thank you, Adventures. Meaning you won on paper, but you lost so much it wasn't worth it. So war, you can imagine a war this way. Think of Putin, frankly. A war that is so costly that even if you win it, is it really worth it? So that's what Putin's got to decide if he's looking at invading Europe and going to a larger war. He's got to say, is it worth it? Can I win? And how much of a margin will I win by? Or will the US and others destroy me too much? Well, that's going to depend on NATO. It's going to depend on now, does he think the U.S. is even going to get involved? Previously, it was just an assumption that the U.S. would go to war to defend Europe. Now, I don't know. And I'm quite serious. I mean, Biden would. Would Republicans in Congress support Biden going to war to defend Europe? I'm not convinced they would. Especially, by the way, I mean, not to scare you guys, but it's true. Pyrrhic victory, Deb. It's Pyrrhic, I believe is the spelling. It's kind of it's a Greek thing. Pyrrhic. Pyrrhic. The Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. Good luck getting the U.S. involved. Lithuania, maybe. We've got a lot of Lithuanians. Estonia and Latvia. Good luck getting the U.S. involved in a war if Putin invades. Poland. There's a chance. There's a lot of Polish Americans. You might have a chance. Even Poland, I think it's questionable whether Republicans would support it, the MAGA Republicans. And then the rest of them, it depends, right? Because these are the biggies. Finland, same thing. Finland, I'm not convinced the U.S. would come to their aid anymore. Biden would. A Democrat would. A Republican, not so sure. And like I said, even if a Democrat does, look what happened with the war. If the Republicans don't put up the money, like they did in the House of Representatives, they kill. Yeah, the U.S. is at, the Russians invade Finland. The U.S. declares war. And then the Republicans, MAGA Republicans in Congress say, we're not paying. Just what they did with Ukraine. We're not paying. And the U.S. money goes, boom, there's no money to fight a war. That is there's more problems this creates. That's the big problem here, is we have just put, Trump this weekend just changed the calculus for Russia and made it more likely that Putin will go to war with us because Trump has said, I'm not going to get involved. Thank you, Macabre. And the problem is, if war breaks out in Europe, it's going to be a world war, whether we get involved or not, right? Because I think, for example, the UK is going to agree to its NATO commitments. They're going to get involved. The Poles are going to get involved. Norway, going to get involved. Finland, because they're new, especially, going to get involved. You are going to have a world war. France, who the hell knows? We hope France gets involved. But you're going to have a world war anyway, and you're going to have nuclear powers at war. Britain's a nuclear power. France is a nuclear power. At the very least, you're going to have Britain against Russia, two nuclear powers going to war over, massive war in Europe. How the U.S. doesn't get involved in that war, we're going to get involved. If Britain goes to war with Russia, we're going to be involved in that war. So all of a sudden, Trump's language made war more likely because he made the calculus for Putin that it's worth doing because America won't get involved. But in the end, America's going to have to get involved anyway. So now, all Trump did was make a war more likely. A little bit more here. For NATO, This means, and I've said this before, but even more so with what Trump said, the U.S. word means nothing from now on. America's commitment to anything in national security, or anything really, means nothing. Thank you, Timothy. NATO, you cannot trust us. And again, this Ukraine debacle has proven it too. You could get a Democratic president that is willing to support NATO. Thank you, Anna. But when push comes to shove and the Russians invade, the Republican Congress, the MAGA Republican Congress just says no. Thank you, Sherry. What that means for NATO, it means Europe is going to have to create its own NATO. Probably the European Union. That whole defense side of the European Union that hasn't really been created or developed yet, you're going to have to develop it. You have no choice now. You are going to have to certainly establish your, I would say, maybe even your own security arrangements. I mean, I guess NATO works for you anyway because you're all members of NATO. So already you agree to defend each other. You may have to have your own independent security agreement between European countries now. Now, a number of them do. I mean, the Scandinavians, I believe, have sort of a regional thing. I'm sure the Baltics probably have something similar where everyone kind of agrees to defend each other separate. But what I worry about, maybe this is a good and a bad thing. What I think is going to happen is Europe now has no choice. Europe is going to increase its defense spending overall because they realize the U.S. is no longer there for them. Thank you, Becky. Who is that? And running. The problem is you are now going to see Europe create its own national security bodies outside of NATO, not involving the U.S. And you're going to see France taking the lead, and you're going to see Germany taking the lead. As we've seen in Ukraine, Germany and France run hot and cold. France still runs cold. Germany has been getting hotter lately in a good way, but the Germans and the French at the beginning were not so great, I think, right? Now they're doing better. You're not going to see the Brits necessarily taking a lead at all. If it's a European Union thing, Britain's no longer in the European Union, so they don't get a say. And by the way, not only does that mean America doesn't get a say, because at least in NATO, we're the big dog. I mean, we freaking run NATO. Even if we've got to agree stuff collectively, let's face it, right? The U.S. is the big dog. If it's a European Union thing, U.S. has no influence at all, or very little. I mean, we have influence on the outside, right? The Brits don't have any influence. So and the Brits, who are our proxy in many ways, right? We were relying on Britain to sort of work the European Union. Britain leaves, we lost that. So we are creating an independent European military structure now. Trump is forcing to happen, and it's something we will not be able to control. And got news for you. It's nice if Europe defends itself. It's less nice when they do it on their own terms and not on our terms, because it means all of a sudden there's stuff they don't want to do, and they go, "Sorry, U.S., you're no longer a member of NATO." China. I think this is the final point. China. What does it mean for China looking at this? China. This is yet another indication to China. If Donald Trump becomes president, he doesn't want to get into wars. If I were China watching this, I would certainly say today versus Friday, 3 days ago, the U.S. is less likely to come to Taiwan's aid if China invades. If A, Trump is president, and B, even if he's not. Even though Republicans hate the Chinese, and they will always talk about they hate the Chinese. All they need is for Donald Trump to change his mind. That's all they need. Trump says, the sky is orange, purple, whatever color that is, it isn't, and they will believe the moon is made of cheese. And Republicans believe it because Trump, the cult leader, said so. All Trump has to do is say, it's not in America's national interest to defend Taiwan, and we're not doing it. So there is also, I would argue, a greater chance of war with China now. Because certainly, let me put it this way, Trump's comments this weekend don't make it less likely that China will invade. It's not like China looked at this weekend and said, wow, America, really scary. They just want to go to war left and right. I'm going to definitely be careful with Taiwan. If you're Chinese, you're looking at or China and looking at this, you're going, Trump is he is an isolationist. He's an isolationist. He doesn't like America's allies. He's willing to drop allies like that. He's willing to suck up to dictatorships like that. No, this is dangerous on so many levels. He pushed us closer to war this weekend. really, it just, anyway, it boggles my mind. It really does. Let's talk a little bit about this. You know what I'll do? I will do the quick question from well, no, you know what? Let's talk about this and then we'll do your question. I still think, because I don't want to get off this topic. Let's do a little bit of your guys' comments and things on this because we're talking about it. And then I'll talk about some of the other issues I wanted to bring up before we just do a full Q&A. But yeah, talk to me. So what else? On this topic, your guys' comments. That is correct. Harry says someone should remind Republicans who was the only country to trigger Article 5. That is true. The U.S. after September 11th was the only country, I should say, on September 11th, the U.S. was the only country to trigger NATO's Article 5 and say we were attacked and we want our NATO allies to come to our defense, and they did unanimously. Only country that called for it, and they did. Somebody may have said, although even if they didn't, it's a good question, what should Trump do otherwise? The thing is, it's BS that European countries aren't spending more on defense. It's actual BS. And if you're going to, especially with the NATO thing, if the U.S. is promising to literally put our lives on the line for you, then you better damn well spend the amount of money you promised on defense. Absolutely. Otherwise, it is BS. The problem is saying that we're not going to come to your defense literally could provoke a world war. It is stupid. It is idiotic. It is dangerous. So it doesn't matter if Trump has a point that the Europeans, a lot of them are basically as bad as Trump. They don't pay their bills. Even though they're not bills to be paid, you get the idea. He's not wrong about that. But like the idiot that he is, and the dangerous moron that he is, and the pro-Putin traitor that he is, Trump decided to craft his argument in a way that A, benefits Putin, benefits America's enemy, and B, creates a much more likely scenario in which we all enter World War III because of what that idiot said. So it doesn't matter if Trump has a point about Europe not paying its bills. Trump just got us one step closer to World War III. And that is incredibly dangerous. Incredibly dangerous. He's an idiot. The man should never have been president. He should never be president again. He's a con man and a criminal too, but he's an idiot. And it drives me crazy. Jon Stewart, who's a very funny but very sort of poignant American political commentator, comedian, who's now back on TV. He took a hiatus for many years. And Stewart had said once about this, and he was talking, I think it was about Trump the first time, and how people liked him because he talks like real people and says like it is. And Stewart said, it kind of is amazing to me because he goes, I don't want to elect somebody president who's as dumb as I am. He goes, I kind of want somebody who's smarter than me. I want somebody who's better than me, who's got more morals, more ethics, knows more about the issues, and frankly is more educated, right? He goes, I don't want somebody who's as dumb as me. This is again sort of the problem of, and this is why it's a kind of a fascist thing. But what Trump has tapped into is this notion that you're all really stupid and so am I. You're all real boorish. You mistreat women. You swear. You know what I mean? You make fun of Jews. You do all this kind of crap, right? Makes fun of Latinos, makes fun of blacks, African Americans, Africans. And because all of you have got a little bit of bigotry going on, I'm going to be a bigot too. Ha, isn't that funny? This is not a drinking game, picking the president of the United States, but this is how the Republican Party thinks. They want somebody who's basically as dumb as them. Thank you, Dawn, or worse. Because he's a real American. No, give me a break. Anyway, it's very upsetting to me. It's anti-elitist and anti-intellectual, but it's anti-expertise is what it is. It's this crazy notion. Thank you for that. By the way, thank you, Dawn. That was very nice. Sorry, I saw it, but I was in the middle of saying that. And thank you, Charles, for the heart too. And Lola for the rose. Sorry, I'm looking at some of these now that I didn't thank you guys. Thank you, Kronos. I'm kind of sick of it at this point. I really am. I'm sick of having to pull punches about Trump. I'm sick of having to sort of, we don't want to alienate people on the right by admitting that Trump is a dangerous man and an idiot and a criminal. And as I always say too, defend Trump all you want, but just tell me, would you let him date your daughter? Would you let your daughter anywhere near that man? And you know what? Anybody who says they would is lying or crazy. Because even Trump's most ardent supporters will tell you there's no chance they would let him near their daughter. And that should tell you something, you know? But I like sort of the whole aspect of too, like, because people pull that on me too, like, oh, you're an expert. Experts always get it wrong. I'm like, really? And how often do idiots get it right? Just feel free to tell me. But how often is your geostrategic analysis of the world order, how often is that correct? Just curious. Your war fighting strategy, I'm sure it's much better than the generals when you sit around and drink with your buddies on the weekend. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mean to be condescending about it, but it really is. Like, there are things in life that expertise matters. And one of them, frankly, is being president. Oh, God. Anyway. Now, that's a fair point. Fred says, I wouldn't let any politician date my daughter. That's a fair point. RFK Jr. is a moron. RFK Jr. is a conspiracy theorist. I mean, first of all, he's far left. If you like far left, that's great. But he's a conspiracy theorist and a nut job. And he's been a nut job for years. Thank you, Brian. I am not a fan of crazy people in general, but especially crazy people for political office, guys. I mean, I just, thank you, Mary. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is a crazy man. He's a conspiracy nut, and he's been a conspiracy nut for years. He thinks all vaccines are dangerous. He thinks no vaccines. I've told you this before. Thank you, Kronos. He was on TV the other day and denied it. Thank you, Shazak. And denied it. And they literally pulled up the video from last summer. He gets on TV, and the host says, so last summer you said that there are no vaccines that are proven effective and no vaccines that are proven safe. Thank you, Louisa, and thank you, Yoga, and thank you, user. So he says, no vaccines proven effective and no vaccines have been proven safe. I never said that. She goes, roll the tape. And they rolled the tape of him last summer saying it. And he didn't say it was a fake. He admitted it. But he goes, well. The man is a liar and he's a nut job. He literally thinks, again, if you're somebody who believes no vaccines have ever been proven safe and no vaccine works, you're an idiot. But I could see why you'd like RFK Jr. You're an idiot if you think no vaccines work. And I will be quite condescending about this point. Thank you, The Road. Because there are certain things in life, certain truths, that if you don't accept them, it's because you're an idiot and not because it's your opinion. You're not allowed an opinion on things that are facts. We know vaccines work. Measles, Harry just said. Right, we know the measles vaccine works. I showed you guys the chart last week. Right? I mean, we know polio. The polio vaccine works. It's just, In any case. So what else on this topic? Oh, I can imagine Vlad. Yeah. A different Vlad saying he's a medical student. Yeah. No, of course. COVID vaccine obviously works. Millions of lives. 15 million lives, I think the World Health Organization said. Obviously, the COVID vaccine worked. We knew that. That's not even debatable. I mean, it's debatable because crazy people want to debate it. It's not even debatable. It's literally flat earthers. But the problem is the internet very long ago, and I had said, because I used to write about the internet for The Economist. I mean, like I was about sort of internet culture. I didn't get to write this for them, but I would have liked to have. But the internet long ago convinced stupid people that they were right because they found other stupid people or crazy people. And initially, if you were crazy or stupid, you would write letters to your member of Congress and you'd cut out the, letters out of the newspaper like a ransom note, for a kidnapping, and you'd put the words together with different letters. You were a crazy person. Well, now you go online and you meet 10,000 other crazy people on Twitter or Facebook or whatever, right? And all of a sudden, there's 10,000 other crazy people telling you you're not crazy. Vaccines don't work. You should inject bleach, hydroxychloroquine, right? All the crazy stuff. But you've got crazy people. And you found other crazy people, so they all think they're right. And it's empowered them. And then you get crazy people running for president like Trump or RFK Jr., and they've convinced them, right? In Trump's case, they convince you, yeah, you're not educated, you're immoral, you're unethical, you abuse women, you're a bigot, you're a criminal, you steal money. Yay! That's what cool people do. All those elites, they're the ones who don't commit crimes and abuse women and make fun of Jews. But the cool people do. The cool poor people do. or cool blue collar people, according to Trump. No, and the vaccine thing's the same thing. We have now turned into this country, and there's always been a strain of it in America, but we turned into this country that reveres ignorance. And there always was a strain. I mean, unlike Europeans, I always sort of laughed because I remember when I studied abroad in France in like 1983, 84, and I remember kind of learning the word intellectual. And I mean, in America, nobody's an intellectual. Now, I don't know now in Europe if you still use the word, but in 83 and 84, you would. And like we had a French man who was part owner of the building I was living in, or the house, and he was clearly a French intellectual and knew his history, and on the history especially, knew his history of the world and Yeah, Callum says they still use it. I mean, we just don't. I mean, I remember hearing that and laughing. I'm not laughing, but as an American going an intellectual. In America, you'd be laughed at. You're an intellectual. I mean, we have always frowned on. There was several years ago, some of the Republican congressmen tried to make fun of Obama. I think it was Obama for trying to make it easier for kids to be able to go to college. I don't know if it was student loans or what it was. And basically mocked Obama for being, I think it was Obama or Clinton. I think it was Obama though. Mocked him for being elitist because he thinks that every child needs to get a college degree. You can, and listen to this argument, right? You can be a good American and not go to college. You're looking down your nose at every blue collar worker who never went to college. And I remember, listen, this was a Republican senator. I think it was Marco Rubio, to be honest, Republican senator saying this. And I remember at the time listening to this and going, most blue collar workers would probably love if their kids could go to college, if they could afford it, right? I'm going to guess most blue collar workers don't go, I don't want my kid going to college. He gets smarter. That's going to spoil him. Right? But literally Republican senators who are considered the sane ones, the House members are kind of crazy, but the senators looking down at education and accusing you of being somehow an elitist if as a politician you have a goal of making it possible for every child who wants to go to college. I mean, how is, you get it? Like, how is that a negative? But this is something, and again, they're tapping into something in our country, though. There is something very anti-intellectual in our country. Thank you, Ava. And I will say this, too. To some degree, it's worked for America in the sense that I think there is this sense of us being a country where, can do, we get things done, very creative, very innovative, right? You look at the tech field. I mean, like all this kind of stuff that's very boom, 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 It's not people sitting back and going, let's have a sherry and discuss this and think about it for 5 years, right? It's boom, people who want to get stuff done. And that I think is sort of from the ironically, from the anti-intellectual side, because it was people who didn't want to get history degrees. They didn't want to learn the history of war going back 5,000 years. They don't know anything about the wars in, the whatever the hell the wars were called in Greece, 2,000 years ago. In any case, what else, guys? I do have some more I can tell you, actually. I mean, on other topics, but actually, let me look here real quick. So Bash Brannigan asked, did any good come from Tucker Putin's interview with Putin? I don't think so. Remember last week, sort of far-right American propagandist, very pro-Russian, very pro-Putin, very anti-Ukraine, very anti-American, I would say, Tucker Carlson interviewed Putin. And fortunately, the interview was kind of a bust. It was boring. It was 2 hours long. It was boring as hell. Putin made it boring. Putin also kind of stepped all over Tucker, so he kind of wouldn't let him ask questions. Like for the first half hour, Putin gave a history lesson. He said he was going to talk for a minute. He talked for half an hour. So that was great. So I think in the end, hopefully, it was kind of a nothing thing. I think and I hope, right? But who knows, Mad Lib's history, exactly, right? Like insert the thing here. Yes, let me tell you about the year 1200, which again, I will say, very European intellectual to some degree, right? So there's a weird Starlink, to talk a little more of the Ukraine stuff, weird Starlink story today. I was talking to Vlad about this too. And basically Starlink, which is Elon Musk's satellite program, right? Satellite internet. The Ukrainians accused them of basically letting the Russians use their system in violation of sanctions. possibly in violation of sanctions. I shouldn't say in violation of, possibly in violation of sanctions, but also in violation of Musk's big comment that I'm not going to be involved in the war. Remember that Musk sort of famously admitted to a journalist writing his biography that he turned off Starlink on internet on Ukraine when they were invading Crimea at one point, and now Trump denies it. So who the hell knows? Not Trump. Musk denies it. But today the Ukrainians came out and said that, in fact, I talked to Vlad. He says, they've known this for a while. The Russians are using Starlink internet, satellite internet, in the occupied areas of Ukraine. Parts of it, they're not supposed to do it in any of the occupied areas, but they're doing it in many parts of it, including eastern Ukraine over by Donetsk, which I will show you. There, Callum will be happy you can see the map finally. But by Donetsk all the way over here, by Avdiivka, that the Russians supposedly have been getting Starlink boxes and using them. Now, Vlad said, the rumor, it's just a rumor, but the rumor is that the United Arab Emirates bought the systems for Russia and gave them to them because Musk said, well, we're not going to sell it to the Russians to use in the war. So anyway, that's all we know. We don't know any more than that because somebody asked about Starlink. That's what we know about it. I'm looking here. I had other stuff, but I don't have to necessarily go into all of it. Nah. There's an interesting data from the Munich Security Conference, but honestly, I'll save that for tomorrow. It's an interesting study of European and American and also developing country attitudes on Russia and other things in security and how basically gotten a little weaker this year. But it's so much that I'd rather wait until tomorrow and I can bring it up then. What else we got? Yeah, so let's talk. Please keep the gifts coming too. I always have to keep reminding. Because I always forget too. But I do this for a living. I do it full time. So your guys' gifts do help me pay the bills. I appreciate it. Please keep them going. How long do I spend researching a day? Who knows? Because I'm kind of, throughout the day, I'm trying to do TikTok videos, but I'm also looking for stories and kind of grabbing them and then throwing them in my notes because I do lots of notes. I sort of throw them on my notes and try to pull together what I think is interesting for the day. Thank you, Ricky. Thank you, Christine. Several Christines in a row. Thank you, Christine. What else we got? Chop chat. Hold on. It's doing the wrong live chat. There we go. Okay, I was trying to find where that was. Did I miss anything? Let me see here. Okay, Carl, you had a donation too. Thank you for that, Carl, for the gift. I just realized I didn't see it because I was talking. Okay, live chat. Here you guys go. Thank you, Jane. What else we've got? Oh, sorry, Kelly. Watching from the ER while waiting on a CT result. That's not fun. Sorry. Blah. Although glad we can get your mind off of it, but still. Ugh. Aid package to Ukraine, there's some update, kind of. Basically, the U.S. Senate is debating the aid package for Ukraine, Taiwan, Israel. And because Trump killed it last week and said, do not pass a border security bill until I become president, because Trump doesn't want Biden to basically be able to fix the issue. If the issue gets fixed, Trump can't run on it. Thank you, Timothy. So Trump told the Republicans, kill the border security bill. Well, Republicans had already said they weren't going to pass aid for Ukraine until the border security is passed. So if they're killing border security, then they're not going to pass aid to Ukraine. So the Senate went ahead, run by Democrats, and said, we're going to move ahead with Ukraine anyway. We're going to drop the border from it since Trump says no, and you're all going to go along with it. So go along with Trump. So they're trying to pass a bill. They're debating it. Aid to Ukraine, aid to Israel, aid to Taiwan. And thank you, Mags. It passed some important hurdles. There's lots of ways in the Senate that you can gum up legislation. You can stop it from even coming to be discussed. They got through that hurdle, meaning even just to bring the bill up, say, oh, okay, today we're going to finally discuss this legislation to aid Ukraine. Thank you, Joe. There's literally in the Senate a way you can filibuster that. You can block it from coming up. Then once it comes up, there's ways of blocking it. You can block an agreement on amendments. You can block an agreement to invoke cloture, which basically says we're only going to debate the bill for a certain period of time and then we're going to vote. Thank you, Liv. So there's lots of ways of blocking it. Well, they were able to get through two ways of blocking it. Who was it? Lola. Thank you, Lola, for the query. they were able to get enough Republican votes, thank you, Megs, for getting past 2 hurdles. So they're still debating it, but there are more hurdles to come that the Republicans can still filibuster the bill. I mean, Democrat can too, but so far we're not worried about Democrats doing it. So we'll see. Now, the problem becomes, even if Republicans, or not Republicans, enough Republicans vote for the Ukraine aid package in the Senate and it passes the Senate, it still has to pass the House or it doesn't go anywhere, right? It's complicated, but you got to pass it in one body, pass it in the other. Then they get together and negotiate, because each bill is probably different. Negotiate, they come up with a new joint bill on Ukraine and Taiwan, we said, in Israel. And then that joint bill goes back to the House for a vote, back to the Senate for a vote. If up or down, if they agree, then it goes to the president for signature. Well, we still have to have the House has to actually do it. You know, the House has to actually vote on it. They're not going to vote on it. Trump said don't do it. So we'll see. I mean, it is certainly better that the Senate passed the bill than not, if they do eventually. Like I said, there were some good votes so far, because at least it puts more pressure on the House and more blame, you know. But I don't know. So I worry about it. Bah! Oh, Kelly, that's awful. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Hope it's okay. Jesus, that's scary and nerve-wracking. What else, guys? Getting your house cleaned and taxes done? Yeah, I'm going to work on taxes in a few weeks. Not yet, but I will get to them. I'm going to have to in the next couple of weeks, probably in a week or two. Ugh, I hate doing taxes. It takes me like 4 to 5 hours. F-16s, there's no news. No news. I'm not convinced there will be news. In principle, Ukraine's not getting them till the summer. Well, they're getting some of them now, but they can't use them. Thank you, Flower Lady. That's cute. I don't think I've seen that before. Kelly is somebody over on YouTube and was at the ER worried about her health. So we were just saying, hope she's doing okay. Selena, love your show. Been listening for about a year now. Wow. Good. Thank you. I do know you were not a believer in World War III. This is true. So to hear you say is concerning, I agree. Well, no, the World War III thing, because Putin's upset that Ukraine is doing something, is bogus. But Trump telling Putin, if I'm president, I won't get involved if you want to invade. And by the way, dude, do it. Invade and teach these guys a lesson. That's the kind of talk that leads to wars. Yeah. Ukraine getting Taurus cruise missiles does not lead to World War III. Trump inviting Putin to invade and saying, please do. Yes, that's the kind of stuff that can lead to World War III. Yeah. Do you think NATO will be forced to pay their 2%? It's not NATO, but it's each individual country, NATO members. Yeah. Each individual NATO country promised back in 6 or so, 2005, 2006, that they would pay not pay, that's Trump's word, it's wrong, that they would increase defense spending to at least 2% of their gross domestic product. So at least 2% of their size of their economy. And more than half, only 9 of 32 NATO countries are doing it, are spending what they promised on defense spending. This year, we may get that number up to half, but half still aren't, including big ones. Canada, Germany. I mean, it's bad. It's bad. Get my glasses. It's much smaller. The other thing had bigger. This one's much smaller. Copy says, Europe standing alone point. Well, we should. No other chance, but now also help Ukraine without U.S. while improving our own defense and waiting for... Yeah, I mean, again, for Europe, in the end, if Trump doesn't get you all blown up in a nuclear holocaust, thank you, Doggy Dave, this is probably a good thing because you're going to have to defend yourselves. I mean, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. You could rely on the U.S. before. The U.S. commitment was real. The United States word means nothing now in any area at all internationally. Our word means absolutely nothing. If Trump is president, our word means nothing. And if a Democrat's president, MAGA Republicans could just kill anything a Democrat promises. United States commitment to anything means treaties mean nothing anymore. I mean, it's really bad. Now, from a European perspective, that's bad. What would be good for Europe, there's really no choice. For what is good for Europe is the only way to get around this if you're Europe is become independent. And you're going to have to now make yourselves, obviously economically, but politically or defensively independent of the U.S. You don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. Because you can't trust us anymore and you can't trust us for your defense. You're going to have to spend more of your own money. And in the end, you will be safer once. You were safe with us protecting you before, but now you're not. And you're going to have to protect yourselves. And from a U.S. perspective, we're screwed because we won't have the influence anymore. It's going to be the European Union having its own defense, mutual defense thing like NATO, and the U.S. won't have a say. And we're going to have to deal with France's lunacy, Germany's hot and cold stuff they like to do. Good Germany. Oh, thank you, Uncle Ricky. I always think that's Joey from Friends when I see that, the Thanksgiving episode with the turkey on his head. But yeah, he's an idiot. God, he's an idiot. NATO should not have been disbanded. It's ridiculous. Why should NATO have been disbanded? Russia's clearly proven itself a threat again. Clearly proven itself a threat. Well, actually, Stephen, this is my original expertise, but thanks. Sorry. This is that situation again where expertise matters. My background, I have a master's in foreign policy from Georgetown. Actually, foreign service, better than foreign policy, but it's probably the top school in the world in the area. And have done a lot of this work, so thanks. That was somebody who gets upset because I was criticizing Trump. Again, I'm not pulling punches anymore on the Trump stuff. I'm trying to hold this coalition together for Ukraine. Republicans and Democrats, and Republicans just turned around and knifed Ukraine in the back. They cut off all of American funding. So what's the point anymore in trying to make it sound like we're all together? We're not together anymore. This is now a coalition of Democrats, independents, good-minded Republicans, that there aren't that many, but there's some, obviously, who still support Ukraine and have a normal head on their shoulders. Thank you, Jane. And the crazy MAGA people that knifed Ukraine in the back. So it's not and frankly, the good Republicans, too many of them, the ones in Congress all went along. All the good Republicans that support Ukraine all went along with Trump. So it's like, again, I'm not going to pull punches anymore and pretend like Trump isn't a problem going into an election. What else? Well, WC Fields, the problem is, WC Fields says, why wouldn't NATO members want to spend at least 2% on defense? Look, I was reading about this before the show, actually. The economy in the last several years has not been great in Europe or much of the world. COVID did not help things. 2009 did not help things, right? We had 2008 crisis. Remember when the whole world almost died economically? That is not a recipe for spending a lot of money on defense. Because you don't, hey, Soren, you don't have a lot of money to spend. So a lot of countries, like Italy, just said they don't see being able to spend the 2% on defense until like 2028 at least. Budget deficits they've got in the countries, right? They just don't have the money to spend, they say. Secondly, for a lot of countries, what's the economic term for this? It's not free. I would say free radical. It's not free radical. Free rider. Is it the free rider problem? I think it's called. Basically, if you're Luxembourg, for example, let everybody else spend the money, right? Is Poland not going to defend itself? Or frankly, even if you're France, is Poland not going to defend itself if France doesn't spend its 2%? Poland's still going to defend itself. Right? From their perspective, it's a lot of the free rider stuff. Like they're going to get it for free anyway. Why buy the cow when you get the milk for free? Why spend 2% if everyone's going to defend you anyway? And the Poles are going to have to spend the money. And the Baltic states are going to have to spend the money because they're right there with Russia. Ukraine's going to have to spend the money. They're not EU yet, but they're Europe. I'm with you. I don't think it's a great thing, Gunnerman. It's a terrible attitude, but I think it's, and frankly, it's a perception of the threat. Up until Ukraine, Europeans, rightfully, I think, thought Russia wasn't a threat. Thank you, Mikey. Putin was a dictator and a disaster, but there wasn't this concern of Russia invading Europe. Now, and we keep hearing it from so many European defense officials warning about Russia invading Europe and World War III. We're hearing it more because the invasion of Ukraine, and not just the invasion of Ukraine, but Russia's response to it, the language out of Russia. I mean, the crazy, crazy language out of Russia after their invasion until now. You know, the stuff from Medvedev, you know, threatening nuclear war every day. You know, I mean, it's amazing. Mods, keep an eye on Clayton. One more word and he's out. I assume he's a troll. Just saying, anybody who goes off topic and throws some crazy MAGA right-wing talking point, he's attacking. He's a troll anyway. Bounce him. Where's me goat? Where's me goat? Ah, here he is. Bye, Clayton. So, how much does the U.S. spend? The U.S. percentage is 3 point something, and it may drop to 3.0 or so in the next year or so. But the U.S. is pretty high. 3.6 maybe was the number I saw today. And I saw this report that was trying to say in many countries, or 3.85, Yvonne is saying, it was saying in many countries it's dropping. In the U.S. it's going to drop to 3%. And I'm like, well, okay, dropping to 3% is still pretty damn good when the goal is 2%. So don't give me this, it's dropping in the U.S. But they raised it in a lot of countries that aren't spending enough. No, too many European countries aren't spending enough, and it's BS. But the answer, Poland is 4%, exactly. Yeah, Poland is 4%, or was it 5%? Poland's a lot. Poland was 4, I think, 4. Poland was the number 1, I think, actually. Yep. Followed by the U.S., I think. I did have a podcast, but it was just too much with everything else, so I stopped doing it. It's hard to do it with everything else, you know? No problem, Ari. What else, guys? Any of this stuff? Just looking here. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, B, I'm not sure they are. I mean, B says opinions on the UK telling people to prepare for war with Russia. I'm not convinced they are. I mean, again, you'd know better, and Callum and other folks in the UK who do defense stuff. But, I mean, yeah, we could. I think let's quit in a minute or two. In a couple of minutes, we'll quit and go over to Discord. We haven't done that in a while. We have a Discord community we go and we hang at, which is kind of nice because we get it's discord.aravosis.com, or just go over to Discord and then search for my name. But we hang out and we sort of do a hangout after the show when the show doesn't go late until tonight looks like a good hour-long show rather than an hour and a half. So thank you, Artur, for following me. Do follow me. I always forget to tell folks to do that. Follow me on TikTok and YouTube, and make sure you hit the like button, please. Yeah, Canada's way under. Canada, I forgot if it's 1 point something. I don't remember. It's not great. I was surprised. I thought Canada would have been okay. Canada's not good either. You know? Well, I mean, somebody mentioned, NATO's expansion. NATO didn't expand. Thank you, Paul. A bunch of Russia's hostages got away, and Russia doesn't like it. Okay? Russia ran the Soviet Union. Russia likes to think that Russia likes to think it's the follow-on to the Soviet Union. It's the legitimate state that gets all of the Soviet weapons and, frankly, all the Soviet territory, right? Like Ukraine, they're trying to get back. So Russia holds hostage Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. Holds hostage Ukraine as part of the Soviet Union. Then you've got Russia, Eastern Europe holding hostage countries that they occupied and turned into Stalinist dictatorships and occupied as well. Poland, Czechoslovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria. Trying to see what I'm forgetting here. I mean, Moldova, although Moldova was part of the Soviet Union. I may be Poland. I may be forgetting somebody else I'm not mentioning in here. Belarus was part of the Soviet Union, though. Now I'm talking, Belarus, sure, but now I'm talking Western, Eastern Europe. So all of these countries, most of them, flee the Russian yoke, the Soviet yoke, brutally occupied by the Russians. Brutally occupied by the Russians. The Ukrainians, millions killed. Eastern Europe, brutally occupied by the Russians. They got free, and what happened? They went running to NATO and said, oh my God, this crazy man was holding me hostage for 50 years. Will you please let me into NATO and stop the crazy man from coming and attacking me again? And NATO said yes. That's what happened. And anybody who doesn't think that any of these countries have the right to ask for help after this guy brutalized them for not just 45 years. Ukraine got it longer than that. The Baltic states got it longer than that. Who brutalized, right, Holodomor, the Ukrainians got it all the way back in the 1930s. Millions of Ukrainians killed by the Soviets, okay? Anybody who doesn't think these victims, these hostages of Russia, deserve to be protected, right? So NATO didn't expand. Russia's hostages escaped and said, oh my God, protect me from the crazy guy in the East because he brutalized me for 50 years and he's going to do it again. And what did Russia show? By invading Ukraine, Russia showed that we were right, and they were right, that they should worry about Russia. So no, that's a bunch of BS. That's a bunch of BS. I mean, Russia's like, NATO's not a threat to Russia. I mean, NATO is truly a defensive alliance. NATO has never done anything to threaten Russia. Russia, nonstop. How often does NATO talk about nuking Russia? That's a good point. How often do you see NATO talking literally about nuking Russia? The Russians, 3 times a week, they talk about dropping nukes on us. 3 times a week. Now, again, because they're sophomoric, immature children, their government is, but we don't talk like that. NATO is a defensive alliance. I mean, you know. Anyway, really just annoying. Oh, that's good. Boris Johnson did? Scott says Boris Johnson gave Tucker a hard time for giving Putin a platform, as probably only Boris can. That's good. That's good. Oh, we were great bombing Yugoslavia? You joke. We weren't very defensive? Bombing Yugoslavia was brilliant. 1999. The Serbs think, with Yugoslavia falling apart, the Serbs think they're going to commit genocide on Kosovo. Muslim independent, I guess, country at this point, or maybe, I don't know if it was independent country at that point or what you'd call it. But the Serbs decide they're just going to kick everybody, literally 1 million people. They're just going to kick them out of Kosovo. Just kick them all out. And they do it. And NATO got involved and said, you know what? Genocide in Europe, not acceptable. That's a very 1940s attitude of you, Serbia, but we're not going to put up with it. And we bombed the hell out of Serbia and taught them a lesson. And Serbia hasn't done squat since then other than make a lot of noise and make a lot of trouble. And they started screwing around again with Kosovo. And NATO literally came out and basically said, we will bomb you again if you do this. But the Serbs are no better than the Soviets as far as that goes. And the Serbs sadly wish they were Soviets. There's way too much of a connection there between Serbia and Russia, so don't even get me going on that. Don't even get me going on that. Why isn't NATO helping Palestine? Why should NATO help Palestine? Why should they? That's not in Europe. NATO is a defensive body in Europe. Serbia was in Europe. Ukraine is in Europe. And anyway, we can't agree because you're going to have the U.S. saying we should help Israel. So depends what you mean by help, you know? So it's not going to work anyway. All right, we are going over to Discord. We're going to Discord. No, what we did in Bosnia, Bosnia as well, not just Serbia. I mean, Kosovo was the big 1999 war. Thank you, Courtney. But Bosnia too. No, NATO badge of honor what they did to the Serbs. So don't even get me going on that. Siberia is Eastern Russia. It's a huge region in Eastern Russia near the Pacific. Well, not just near the Pacific. It kind of goes, it's huge. You know, thank you, Love My. All right, guys, we're going to go over to Discord. Some of these topics, Luis, we talked about Starlink earlier. But let's go to Discord. We'll talk and hang out like we always do. It's discord.aravosis.com. So go and join us over there. And otherwise, I will see you guys tomorrow, okay? So thank you, YouTube. Thank you, TikTok. Thank you, mods. And yeah, it's 7:10, so that's not too late. We can go hang out a bit over there. All right? Well, come over to Discord. We can talk about more of your questions there. Otherwise, come tomorrow, and we'll do more here tomorrow. I'm here every night, Monday to Friday, 6 o'clock Eastern. Do follow me on TikTok. Do follow me on YouTube. I do several videos throughout the day. Thank you, Montserrat. I do it on Ukraine, but honestly, I do national security. And thank you, Super Hornet. With the U.S. election coming up, I'm doing a lot about the election. I mean, let's face it, this year, my TikTok feed is going to be a lot of U.S. election stuff because it matters. And I'm an American political analyst with a very strong foreign policy background, but not just foreign policy. So Ukraine will be our number one topic, but number two is going to be America and the elections. So, all right, let's go, guys. Talk to you later. Thank you. Join us over at discord.aravosis.com. Otherwise, we'll see you all tomorrow. All right. See you guys. Thank you. And that kind of worked well enough on YouTube. At least I was able to see your guys' comments. All right. Let me figure out how to turn this off now. Controls. There we go. All right. See you guys on